Every journey begins with a single step. For our friend, the hydrogen atom, that step is a bold leap from being part of a water molecule to an emissary of energy. In the heart of an electrolysis chamber, powered by renewable energy, water is transformed. Oxygen steps back, releasing the vibrant hydrogen atom. Alone, hydrogen is volatile, but when paired with captured CO2 and the help of a touch of alchemy, together, they forge a potent synthetic fuel. A new energy carrier, clean, efficient, ready to power our world. Innovative companies are investing in the production of e-fuels, which can then be distributed via the existing infrastructure to industry and consumers, providing them with a climate-friendly alternative to conventional fossil fuels. Aviation, maritime, heavy goods transport, even your car, e-fuels power a wide range of sectors and offer a sustainable solution to our diverse energy and mobility needs. We at the eFuel Alliance embrace the entire value chain and give it a face and a voice. Our goal is political acceptance and regulatory consideration of e-fuels as a significant contribution to sustainable climate protection. In the quest for green energy, e-fuels are an essential piece of the puzzle, linking today's infrastructure to a more sustainable future. The eFuel Alliance is powering this transition, forging a path from hydrogen to hope, because the future of energy is now.
My name is Tobias Block. I'm responsible for strategy and content within the eFuel Alliance. This is our second webinar on REDIII implementation. Today we have two distinguished guests from ministries from Czechia and Poland. If you have missed our first webinar, which was about the REDIII implementation with focus on the transport sector in Finland and Portugal, you will find the recording on our YouTube channel. I will start with a short overview about the REDIII implementation, and for that reason I will share my slide. And please allow us first to present the eFuel Alliance in a few seconds to you. Although you are watching a webinar of the eFuel Alliance, so you probably are aware. We are the trade association for hydrogen derivatives. We have more than 170 members along the whole value chain. So we are a cross-sectoral association. We have members from the technology sector like Honeywell or Siemens Energy, also interesting startups like Inerotech or Ecodos. Or HIF Global. Then we have companies from the fuel sector like ExxonMobil, Repsol or Neste, but also different consumers and off-takers like Lufthansa, like Porsche, Ferrari or BMW or Iveco, for example. Our members come from different regions globally. We have now 10 members from Japan, for example, members from South America, like Parafuel, from Africa, from South Africa, and from the US. Our goal is to get eFuel projects to FID. That means final investment decision. So our main job is to create attractive business cases by shaping the political framework. We are a lobby organization. We are trying to change the political framework to make investments into e-fuels. We are for fair competition among technologies. We are not advocating against electrification or any kind of technology, and we are mainly active in Europe with offices in Brussels and Berlin. And if you like to join the eFuel Alliance, just give us a hint. We would much appreciate to get more members, as more active we can be politically. So thanks a lot for this short block of advertisement. With that, I will start with a short overview about the REDIII implementation and where we are. The Renewable Energy Directive, or REDIII, is setting for the first time clear targets for renewable fuels of non-biological origin, so RFNBOs. That is green hydrogen, and derivatives. The targets for member state is 1% in 2030. That includes a double counting and an additional 1.5 multiplier for aviation and maritime. So at max, we are talking about 0.5%, which is physically demanded as a target for member states. This demand instrument is quite important because we believe that, or we are sure that demand is leading to offtake agreements and in the end is leading to final investment decisions. There are also other targets in the Renewable Energy Directive for advanced biofuels or conventional biofuels. There are also rules how to produce RFNBOs. We will not focus on that today. But if you're interested in, don't hesitate to contact the eFuel Alliance. The current status of the REDIII implementation is showing here on that map. Actually, last week on 21st of May, there was the deadline for the REDIII implementation, but not last week. It was last week, the year before. Originally, member states should have implemented the REDIII regulation already in 21st of May 2025. As you can see, just half of the member state have fully implemented the REDIII. And we are following that, of course, because it is important for our members and for the hydrogen and e-fuel business to know the regulation and to know the potential demand and other criteria in these countries. You can see on the map that countries like Germany, Italy, Finland, Denmark was the first have successfully implemented REDIII. There are some discussions about Sweden. Our opinion, and that's also confirmed by our Swedish members, is that it is fully implemented, although there's no number, concrete number for RFNBO targets. It's just referring to the European targets. So we have included here a 1% RFNBO target in 2030. Some countries are quite late to the party. We are missing any information currently from Austria, Croatia, and Estonia. If you have information here, please also let us know. It's not easy to follow 27 different REDIII implementations, and you will see in the next slides how different the interpretation from member states are. And we will later hear from the experts from Czechia and Poland how their interpretation is and how they have implemented REDIII. We are expecting soon in Portugal and France a full implementation because they are in the final steps of the legislative process. But maybe one step back, where do we come from? The REDIII and especially the RFNBO targets, they were quite ambitious in the beginning, or much more ambitious than we are discussing at the moment. The official REDIII Commission proposal in 2021 was 2.6% RFNBOs in 2030. The European Parliament even asked for 5.7% in 2023. It was Rapporteur Markus Pieper from the German CDU who has negotiated that. After the war in Ukraine, the Commission has increased the RFNBO target to 5% to stay more independent of fossil fuel imports and to increase the resilience of the European Union. It's quite remembering us to the current situation after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Unfortunately, member states haven't learned from that. In the final trilogue negotiations, so when Parliament and Council are negotiating the final results, the REDIII RFNBO quota was reduced under French presidency to 1%, and the energetic targets came back with that the multipliers. So in reality, we ended up with 0.5%. And you can see on that figure what the difference is between 0.5% in yellow and what demand is triggered with 0.5 in comparison to 5% RFNBO targets. And in addition, this has led to quite a delay, because from the Commission proposal in 2021 to the national implementation, and we have seen just half of the members have successfully implemented yet, we have lost already 5 years. The positive message is that the current REDIII implementation by the member states is much more ambitious when it comes to RFNBO targets than it has to be, because member states are implementing more or higher RFNBO targets. The highest RFNBO targets we have is in Finland with 4%. As said, if you want to have a detailed analysis, please watch our first webinar about the REDIII implementation. But also other countries are quite interesting. In Spain, we are discussing 2.5% with some flexibilities in the beginning, but these flexibilities are quite fast reduced. In Belgium as well, we are discussing 2%, and in Ireland, 2.5 as well. In Germany, unfortunately, we just have implemented 1.5%, but it is increasing in 2032 already to 3%. And 1.5% in Germany already means 5 terawatt hours of hydrogen demand for the transport sector in 2030. The big or the most important signal we have at the moment comes from Germany, Spain, and Belgium, because these countries are setting long-term RFNBO targets until 2040. Germany, for example, wants to go to 10% of the energy demand in the road sector should be RFNBOs in 2040. And that is sending an important signal to Brussels, because in Brussels, the REDIII is not even fully implemented, but we're already starting the process for the RED4. So there's a consultation ongoing for the revision of the Renewable Energy Directive. And this is important, that we stay ambitious with the RFNBO targets. But what does it mean for the detailed demand in the member states? For that reason, we have done this analysis, which we are frequently updating. We are taking the fuel demand in 2030 from the Fit for 55 mixed scenarios, and we are taking the RFNBO targets from the REDIII implementation for the road sector. And in some member states, we also have additional targets for the maritime sector. And then in addition, we have the 1.2% eSAF from the ReFuelEU Aviation. And in this graph, you can see which demand we are expecting in 2030 from these regulations. In Germany, as said, we are between 6 and 7 terawatt hours in 2030. On top, we have the ReFuelEU Aviation. So we are expecting a bit more than 8 terawatt hours. And this is combined, as you will see in the next slide, with high penalties. So it's quite likely that we will see investments. We already see FIDs, for example, from our member Repsol in Spain. So we see these mandates and quotas are really working. After Germany and Spain, we have France, Netherlands, and Poland with the highest demand we are expecting at the moment. What's interesting is also the maritime situation. Some member states are discussing or have set maritime targets, like Belgium, France, Netherlands, or in Greece. The maritime fuel demand is quite high. For that reason, this 1.2% quota in Greece has quite an impact on the RFNBO demand. But you can also see it's leading to a market distortion. Some member states don't have maritime targets, some have, and in the end, this of course will have impact on fuel bunkering in the European Union. For that reason, our recommendation also for RED4 is to reduce the flexibility for member states and come to a more harmonized single market when it comes to renewable fuels. My last slide before I will hand over to the external experts is on penalty system, because targets are just effective if we have high penalties in the member states. And here you can also see that it's quite a range. We have countries with high penalties, for example, in Belgium with 132 euro per gigajoule. This is a CO2 price of more than 1,400 euro per avoided ton of CO2. So I don't know any other target market where you can have these high CO2 abatement costs. Other member states like Germany are a bit below, France going to 110 euro per gigajoule. Unfortunately, in Poland, and I'm happy to discuss that with our speaker later, we see quite a low penalty. So here we are questioning if this is enough to trigger investments, or if not, fuel companies prefer factoring in penalties instead of investments. Some countries just have court decisions or individual case-by-case decisions. This is not helpful to negotiate offtake agreements, because here we don't know what the maximum price could be. With that, I hope I could give you an first interesting overview about where we are with the REDIII. We are planning in future also additional webinars on that topic, and we are in contact with the German ministries here for the next webinar. But now, please let me hand over to our first speaker, and we will start with Petra, because Czechia was one of the first countries who have implemented REDIII. Petra is working for the Ministry of Industry and Trade, is responsible for hydrogen technology and the Czech hydrogen strategy. So he coordinates hydrogen strategy fulfillments and updates. And in the previous positions, he was working for international energy and IT companies. He also spent several years by teaching and doing research at the Technical University in Prague, Kyoto, and Edmonton. Thanks a lot. We are quite honored to have you here in this webinar, Petra, and I will directly hand over to you to give us an overview about how you have implemented REDIII in Czech Republic. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so good afternoon from my side, and thank you, Tobias, for a nice introduction. Normally I'm saying good afternoon from Prague, but today I am in Berlin, and we had a couple of discussions about the hydrogen here, so we are very closely working with Germany. As Tobias said, I was responsible with my team for preparation of the Czech hydrogen strategy, and now I have the task, which is much more challenging. It means how to turn the strategy, the papers, into reality. If we check the map which Tobias was showing about the countries which already implemented REDIII directive, Czech Republic was indeed one of the very first ones. So we implemented it last year, as it should be implemented. And Czech Republic has, let's say, from some point of view, a relatively specific situation for implementation of these REDIII directive. Because at the end, we have only two companies which have obligation in the frame of REDIII. The first one is our biggest refinery, which is owned by Unipetrol, and second one is a company in North Moravia, Borsodchem. And both of these companies are very different, and both of these companies will use totally different solutions. So before I will come to the details of the implementation to all that, let's say, parameters, I will try to explain how we would like to work with these two companies. From my point of view, from the point of the Ministry of Industry and Trade, the solution for Unipetrol seems to be easier. One of the reasons why I am here in Berlin is a discussion about interconnection of our hydrogen transport networks. So by the end of the year 2030, we should be connected to German hydrogen network, to that kernets, and through the kernets we should be able to get renewable hydrogen from the places where the production of hydrogen is very effective. It means some Nordic countries as Denmark or maybe even Finland. So it means that through the connection to the pipeline, that refinery, which will use at the end about 13 or 14,000 tons a year, can use the hydrogen which is brought to them by pipeline. The biggest advantage of that is that hydrogen should be much cheaper than the renewable hydrogen we are able to make here in the Czech Republic. Now we are counting with the prices in the range between 5 and 7 euros per kilogram. On other hand, if we try to produce the RFNBO hydrogen, and now I'm talking about the rules which are valid now for the for renewable hydrogen, and they will be valid by the year 2030. We are not able to get to the price under 10 euros per kilogram. The production price of renewable hydrogen, which will fulfill all that RFNBO rules, is about 18 euros per kilogram. And I will later say why we have so expensive hydrogen. So hopefully that bigger off-taker, the oil and petrol, should be able to get the hydrogen from the pipeline, and they should be able to build some good business case around that imported hydrogen. On the other hand, that second company, the Borsodchem, they will need much less hydrogen, about 1,000 tons a year to fulfill the goals which are in Czech legislation. And unfortunately, if they do whatever, that RFNBO hydrogen will not be cheaper than that 18 or 16 euros per kilogram if we apply all the rules related to our regulation and to additionality. So for that company, we are jointly looking some options how to resolve it, maybe even to use some low carbon hydrogen or how to reduce some production, because unfortunately we are not able to bring any pipeline to that North Moravia region. We are discussing the construction of hydrogen pipelines, but definitely there will not be ready before the year 2035, which is too late for, let's say, reaching the targets of REDIII. So these are two approaches. We need to find some local production in that North Moravia, and in North Bohemia, we hopefully will use the import of the hydrogen. So now going back to the parameters of Czech transposition. In area of the transport sector, we let's say try to make the transposition as easy as possible. So we stick to the minimum values which are defined by REDIII. So it means for the transport sector, we have 1% as a target. We have the same multipliers, but we are not using them. We are using that option that this 1% of RFNBO hydrogen will be used for the production of gasoline and diesel, but we realize that this is an approach which will be used by many other countries. We also do not have any sectoral sub-targets, but in reality we have only one Czech producers, and we also do not have any, let's say, the steps how to get to that 2030 target, because in reality, and it was also outcome of discussion of the companies, because for companies, it would be very expensive to come with any, let's say, usage of RFNBO hydrogen before the year 2030, because every use of RFNBO hydrogen means some increase in the costs. So if they are trying to go step by step to that target, it will affect their efficiency and their profitability. So from our point, there are no, let's say, in-between targets, and we stick only to the targets as they were defined by the Commission. We have the penalty about 9.6 euros per kilograms, and altogether we are talking about 16 tons of hydrogen for that company. These numbers are also a little bit tricky because it depends if they will be exporting some diesel and gasoline, and it also depends how much, what will be the mixture between imported gasoline and diesel and between exported gasoline and diesel from the Czech Republic. So if we go to that second part, which is industrial section, and that company Borsodchem belongs to the chemical sector. Again, we tried to have the easy solution after the tough discussions with industry and with, let's say, representatives of chemical industry. We implemented slightly different targets. For the year 2030, it's only 10 euros, and for the 2035, it's 15%. This is a deviation of the targets which were defined by REDIII, but at the end, due to the fact that these targets are only for one company, we need to resolve that together, and we are working on the solution, which at the end will make a sense as for us, for the country, as well as for the company. Again, there are no sub-targets, there are no multipliers, and we have a little bit different penalty here. Maybe what should be mentioned, in the Czech Republic, we are producing ammonia, but due to the fact that all the hydrogen for ammonia production is made as a byproduct through partial oxidation of heavy oil residues. This is outside of REDIII scope. This is a byproduct, and in that case, there is no need to replace it. On the other hand, this ammonia will never ever be regarded as a green ammonia. Still, it will be, let's say, shadow or gray ammonia, but there is no need to replace that hydrogen for production of ammonia by green hydrogen. And as I said, for that 10% goal, we need about 1,400 tons of hydrogen a year. And I also promised to tell you why we have a so big difference between imported and RFNBO hydrogen and hydrogen which is produced locally. We had a lot of discussions, even with commissions, with Czech producers, and we had a couple of studies on that. Then at the end, we found that there is a couple of factors which are building the price of renewable hydrogen. And some of them are, if not neglected, sometimes totally overlooked. The first, which everybody definitely counts on, is electricity price. But there are two other factors. It's utilization and continuity of offtake. And if you have about 1,200 hours of sunshine, as we have in the Czech Republic, you can get a very low utilization of electrolyzers. And in that case, with that utilization, the depreciation of assets, the depreciation of the price of electrolyzers start to be also a very important factor. And second very important factor is continuity of offtake. Because as you can see, the outcome of one study we did are in that graph on the very left side. Then it shows two production options. The first one is not optimized for continuous production. So if there is a sun or wind, we are, let's say, producing the hydrogen. And in that case, we can get hydrogen for the price about 12 euros. And the very important remark is that this is renewable hydrogen, but not according to RFNBO rules. But in case we really need to have some continuous production, we need to have a surplus of that renewable energy. We need to much higher capacity of installed renewables according to install capacity of electrolyzers. And it means that at the end, the price of the hydrogen is much better, and there is a lot of electricity which will not be used for the hydrogen. And second topic, in the condition of Czech Republic, you need to have a combination of wind and solar. And the best way how to decrease the price is to have, let's say, for 1 megawatt of installed capacity of electrolyzer, about 2 megawatts of installed capacity of sun and 2 megawatts of installed capacity of solar. In that case, you again can decrease the price to the range of about 10 euros per kilogram, but still without that RFNBO rules. So these are the topics we found when we are looking why our hydrogen is so expensive, and this is definitely one of discussion points we had this commission, and hopefully they will somehow reflect it in the next regulations. So this was, let's say, a short overview of our REDIII implementation and all that, let's say, framing conditions around, and hopefully it will be valuable point for you for your, let's say, discussions and for your decisions about the production of hydrogen. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Petra, for providing us this interesting overview about the situation in Czech Republic. And I think you're also one of the few countries which have taken the industry target quite serious, or at least have a legislation for the industry targets. I would like later to discuss with you when we have seen the production cost and to compare that with the penalties that you have introduced. But before that, and I think we will have similar discussion for the Polish REDIII implementation, I would like to welcome Kajetan, our distinguished speaker from the Polish Environmental Ministry, to this stage. He is senior specialist at the Ministry of Climate and Environment of Poland, working in the Department of Innovation and Energy Efficiency, responsible for hydrogen within a unit covering hydrogen and CCUS. His previous civil service experience focused on the oil and fuel sector. With that, I'm handing over to you, Kajetan. The floor is yours, and already thanks for your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon from Warsaw. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to present Poland's perspective on the topic we are talking about today. Let me share my screen with you. I would like to start with a very brief talk about broader context, because RFNBOs needs to be seen within the whole energy system transition. And here I'm sure that Poland is in pretty similar to Czechia, that in our both economies, emissions are going down and the renewables are increasing. However, we started from the very low level. Like now we have, let's say, only 31% of renewables in electricity generation. EU has around 47, I think. But 20 years ago, EU had about 15 and Poland had 2%. So we are sure that we are moving right direction, but renewable energy necessary for RFNBO production is still limited. So affordable low carbon energy is still ahead of us. So we managed to decouple the economy growth from emissions, and now we have to go further, and simultaneously we have to protect competitiveness, energy security, strategic autonomy. And in theory, RFNBOs fits very well for that, but in practice, costs are still very high. So this is why we need a very pragmatic approach, and we need to think on where RFNBOs really makes sense. So as for industry targets and imports, in industry demand we expect is still limited in short term. In Poland, in industry in Poland, hydrogen is mostly byproduct and SMR hydrogen used for ammonia. And as you know for sure, ammonia production is a very complex issue, and installations are strongly integrated, and assets are continuously modernizing to cut emissions. So we can just close these installations we have and replace it with RFNBO space. So it's not simple switch from green to gray, from gray to green hydrogen. And we are still in discussions at national level. We are in dialogue with European Commission, and we are also looking at other countries, and our approach will be similar to the Netherlands one. So part of obligation will be on the industry, perhaps a little bit smaller than in Czechia, but still, and the rest will be covered with support schemes. And as for imports, Peter said that the RFNBO's hydrogen production in Czechia is about 18 euros per kilogram, and in Poland it's about 11. So it's a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but still very high. We have limited import capacity. We have one terminal. Expansion is ongoing, but still we don't have, and we don't expect to have in near term large scale import capacity. So we based on this one import terminal on ammonia, and what is very important for us when we are talking about import of RFNBOs is that we want to avoid dependency on import, especially on fragile and exposed on geopolitical risks import from different part of the world. So we don't want to replace one dependency on imported fossil fuels with dependency on imported, even imported renewables. So we would like to focus on regional cooperation, and here cooperation with Finland has very good perspective, and the project Nordic Baltic Hydrogen Corridor would be a game changer, speaking about supply of RFNBO hydrogen to Poland. And as for transport target, we expect that main user will be refineries. so using refinery road, RFNBO, in production of conventional fuels. And the second big consumer is aviation, so for SAF production. And costs here are still very high. So that's the main reason why legislation is still delayed. But we have draft legislation with green direction, and we are moving forward with that legislation, and we are also moving forward with first RFNBO's production projects. So we have last year we signed five contracts for RFNBO production. So we are going to have several projects for electrolyzers. It's around 0.3 gigawatts in total. So this could more or less cover expected demand in transport sector. And as for legislation, we have two key legal acts. So the first one already adopted is an aviation law change, and the second one is amended to act on biofuels and act on renewable energy sources. And we are going to send it to the parliament, perhaps not in a few weeks, but we hope during holidays. The draft legislation is to be forwarded from government to the parliament. And we expect the consumption about 40 kilotons, and in that about 32 is for refineries, and then about 7 is for aviation. And we also use RFNBOs in road transport in direct use. So it's mainly for hydrogen city buses. So the buses the feedback about these buses is very good. Operationally, it's a very nice solution for some cities. But the consumption is relatively low, so it's not visible in overall statistics yet. And now we are focusing on reducing costs and building local and regional value chains. And coming to the end, I would like to underline some issues about EU legislation. So we see when we are talking about RFNBO's production in Poland, we see that some legal acts are too complex, are not flexible enough, and it makes development of RFNBO production very difficult. So together with some countries, with Austria, with Germany, with Netherlands, we sent a letter to European Commission, and we are very happy that European Commission is open to rethink this some small point, because regular certainty is also very important for us. But we expect that postpone of additionality rule until 2035, with keeping grandfathering for 2040. And we are also would like to change hold hourly correlation, stay with monthly correlation until 2035. So as market is developing slower than expected, the transitional period in this act should be longer, as we think. So thank you very much. I hope that that you still have impression that Poland supports RFNBO development, but we need a realistic and pragmatic approach. I'm very pleased to see that this topic gaining attention, and thank you very much for your attention. I'm at your disposal.
Thanks a lot, Kajetan. This was quite interesting as well. And with that, I would like to start in the last 15 minutes a discussion, a Q&A session. We already got 8 questions from our audience, and I would like to ask Petra to come back to the discussion round here. Maybe as a starting question, you are both implementing REDIII at a minimum level, so just taking the EU targets and not having more ambitious targets or even targets beyond 2030, like we see in Germany, Belgium, and Spain. What were the reasons for that? I would like to say low ambition when it comes to the implementation of REDIII. Petra, can I start with you? And then maybe
answer is very easy. It's money, because everything needs a lot of investments. We are discussing some programs like operational support for the production of hydrogen, but at the end, all these programs are incredibly expensive. So we need to optimize the costs, and we are trying, let's say, to find a way how to fulfill the goals and make sure that the overall costs, and I'm not only talking about the costs on the side of the government, of the ministries, but also costs on the side of the companies are minimum, and we are trying to find the optimum how to get to the targets. Because maybe I didn't mention it, but in some discussions, when I talk with some potential producers of the hydrogen, and mostly the producers abroad who are trying to export the hydrogen, they are, let's say, stressing that we should really stick to all the targets, that the penalties should be even higher. But I'm afraid that this is not the solution which can be applied generally, because one of the options for the, let's say, users of the hydrogen is that they will stop use it, because all these companies need to be profitable, and in case they are buying the hydrogen for 18 euros per kilogram, definitely they, from the technical point of view, they can work with that, but they are not able to work with such a immense increase in the costs and to stay profitable. Also, we are really dancing on the edge to find out what's still possible and what could be sustainable finance. And again, I would like to stress the word sustainably, because it's not a problem to finance something for 1 year or 2 years. But if we spend a couple of million or billions euros supporting somebody, and he will get bankrupt after 10 years when the subsidies are stopped, it's not a good solution.
Definitely
So
not.
in Poland, the answer is absolutely the same. That you have to see the broader context. That, for example, now we see that we see the war in Iran, and we see the prices of fuels, and it seems to be we are like, okay, why don't we have more production of RFNBO now? It would be extremely positive to have local production of fuels on the one hand, but on the other hand, we have a war in Ukraine still ongoing. And a few years ago, most of our fuels, or a lot of our fuels, were from Russia, and we made a very great effort to change it for another directions. We invested in infrastructure, So it's not possible to just switch it off in the moment and switch to the RFNBO, which is much more expensive.
Yeah, but maybe instead of producing them for 11 or even 18 euro per kilogram in your countries, what about importing them from countries which have better conditions for renewable electricity production? I mean, in Czechia it's maybe more difficult, but is Poland considering the import of hydrogen, and maybe it will be imported more as derivatives than hydrogen?
So we import some ammonia right now, only because of just lower price. So we would be very happy and hope it would change in coming years, that we will import green ammonia through our terminal. But most of the fuels we use in Poland now we produce in Poland, and we are very open for regional cooperation. For example, with Finland. Finland has great possibilities to produce cheap hydrogen. We are really looking forward to have Nordic Baltic hydrogen corridor. And it would be a great opportunity. So we are open for import, but we are looking for safe directions.
Thanks a lot. We are receiving a lot of questions regarding the penalty level.
If I can also some remark on the import, definitely. Yes. And this was, let's say, one of my main points to show that if import is possible, it's probably the best solution. And we are mostly talking about the imports from Europe. But again, to give you the price tag on that, the repurposing of that pipelines, which are on my map, costs, let's say, about 1/3 of the price we need to invest into the electrolyzers to build the same capacity for that only petrol. But to build a new pipeline to North Moravia, again, costs about 3 or 4 times more than the repurposing of the existing ones. Yeah? So again, everything is about the money. Yeah? And you need to really fine-tune how to continue. And that Northern Moravia, Silesian region, it's very close to Poland, and Poland has also very strong industrial base there. But unfortunately, from the hydrogen point of view, they are in the middle of nowhere, because we do not have pipes neither from the south, from the Czech Republic, neither from the north. And now there are some discussions if it will be cheaper to bring hydrogen to these industry regions from the north, from Poland, or from the Czech side.
I definitely understand that, and there are also in Germany a lot of projects which are depending on a hydrogen core grid. For example, if you think about the Total Energies refinery in Leuna, which have a firm offtake agreement with the RWE hydrogen production in Lingen in the northwestern parts of Germany, but for that reason, of course, hydrogen pipes are needed. Coming to the penalties, we have quite different penalties. Petra, you mentioned for Czechia that for the industry you have set the penalties to 2.6 euro per kilogram, and for the transport sector around 11 euro per kilogram. But compare that with production cost of 12.3 to 15.8 euro per kilogram. The penalties are lower than the local production cost. The same goes for Poland. Therefore, the transport sector, we have even lower penalties. Isn't it easier at the current state for these companies who are obliged to meet the targets to just factor in penalties? And why haven't you set the penalties higher to trigger investments with 2.6 euro per kilogram or 1.4 in Poland? I think it's impossible to find any business case for green hydrogen or RFNBOs.
Again, very easy answer, because these penalties were the trade-off of discussion between the industry representatives or the representatives of chemical industry, because even if you put that penalties very high to, let's say, balance the price of the partial hydrogen, it will not help you, because in that case, the solution for the chemical company, it's easy. We stop the production. And this is definitely not anything we are aiming for. Our target is to keep the production, in Europe, and we need to find some solutions. So now, and in that particular case, it's relatively easy because we have one company and we are, let's say, discussing with them, and we are trying to, let's say, find a solution which will be acceptable for them, which will be acceptable for us as a government, and which will make sure that the production will stay in the Czech Republic.
Clear answer. Thanks.
Poland,
how is
Poland's situation is similar, that penalties is only one of the trigger that we may use in whole value chain, and it's okay. It's really the level of penalties is really low, but we see that it works. That we are launching new projects targeted for RFNBOs in transport sector. So perhaps they are low, but they're high enough to launch projects. So I think it works.
Okay, thanks a lot. I mean, we as eFuel Alliance, we would definitely recommend to set higher penalties like we see in all other member states, because I think companies are just moving if there is a clear need and urgency to invest. And we have also participated in your consultation in Poland, and we hope that some changes in futures are still possible. But in the end, it's not just about quotas and penalties. It's also about all other framework conditions. And I'm glad that you both mentioned the production rules, the famous delegated acts, which we have for RFNBOs. Kajetan, you mentioned the changes that you are demanding. Have you got any feedback from the Commission here? I mean, we have all seen that in the Accelerate EU communication, they now finally confirmed that they will come up with a revision, but for us, it's still unclear how the timeline looks like, which delegated acts they really will address. And did you have more information there from Brussels?
No, go ahead, Kajetan.
Thanks. The timeline of revision is always unclear, but we are talking about very narrow changes in this Act 1184, so for RFNBO, and it's possible that even that they will start even in June. But the change will be very small, very narrow, very targeted.
Yeah, actually, what are the leaks from the Commission is that by the end of June, there should be so-called targeted revision. And we expect that the targeted revision will be, let's say, extension of existing exceptions. Yes? And so it means that the exception for additionality will be extended probably to the year 2035. And the exception for time for our regulation will be also extended for some period of time. But let's say Commission can do what they want. And after there will be, let's say, the standard process related to delegated act. There is some discussion, and after it needs to be approved by European Parliament. So it's less what we expected, and actually it's even less what was in that letter, which was prepared by a German, Austrian, Polish guys. we also nearly joined, but afterwards we discussed one of the points. So we didn't join, but we are still pushing in the very same direction.
Yeah, we know the Commission can do whatever they would like to do here. It need to be accepted by the Parliament, or there can be a majority built in the Parliament against it, but that's always difficult. And in the end, we need these rules to have our investments. And the industry has asked for even more changes. We as eFuel Alliance, we also would like to use renewable electricity from subsidized installations, like it is possible for RFNBOs in UK or in the USA. And maybe also considering renewable electricity from neighboring bidding zones that could also help Czechia, for example. So maybe the Commission could take this into account. In addition, I think we need a quick fix, but we definitely need more pragmatic rules, because currently we are artificially increasing the production cost for green hydrogen with being as green as ever possible. This might be possible in future, but this is not how to scale up a new technology. With that, I would like to thank again my two speakers, Petra and Kajetan, for your speeches and your presentations. I think it was well spent 1 hour and a bit. And we got some insights from the REDIII implementation, focusing on transport in Poland and Czechia. And this won't be our last webinar. We are about organizing the next one, also inviting official representative from ministries to tell us more about REDIII implementation. And so thanks a lot. Have a nice day, and looking forward to see you soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot. See you. Bye-bye.
See you.